You've heard people say things like you're amazing or you do everything right. But what happens when those compliments start to sound like a death sentence? When the words that should make us feel good start to imprison us? It's time to discover the truth behind the compliments that hurt us the most. Here we'll reveal the 5 compliments you should never accept. Get ready for a shocking revelation. Have you ever noticed how people often say things that seem like compliments, but hide something deeper? Compliments that, instead of inspiring us, paralyze us. It's time to unravel the mystery and understand what's behind those words. Get ready for a journey of self-discovery. Let's discover together how these compliments can become curses in disguise. Have you ever wondered how people can use compliments to control or manipulate you? It's a subtle way of exerting power over someone, and you may not even care. It's time to open your eyes and see reality for what it is. Let's explore together how these compliments can limit and trap us. Have you ever felt pressured to live up to other people's expectations? These expectations can be overwhelming. It's time to break free from these constraints and find your own identity. Let's discover together how these compliments can hold us back from growing. If you're ready to break free from the constraints of the compliments that hurt us the most, then it's time to watch this video until the end. Get ready for a brand new revelation that will change your life forever. Click play and let's start this journey together. 1. You are better than everyone else. Have you ever heard someone say that you are better than everyone else and felt a heat run down your spine, but then realized that it was not a genuine compliment, but rather a curse in disguise, the kind of thing that makes you feel uncomfortable and insecure at the same time? Because instead of inspiring confidence and motivation, it only increases the pressure and anxiety of living up to an unrealistic expectation. You begin to question whether you are really capable of living up to the expectations of others, and whether you are just deceiving yourself with a distorted image of your own competence. You feel like you are walking a tightrope between confidence and doubt, and that can lead to an identity crisis and a loss of self-esteem. You begin to wonder who you really are and what you are really worth. Did you know that this type of compliment can be a form of control and manipulation, because the person giving it is trying to create an emotional dependence in you, making you feel grateful and indebted to the person, and at the same time, creating an expectation that you should live up to their expectations? You start to feel trapped in an emotional trap, and you don't know how to free yourself anymore. You feel like you're living in a glass bubble where everyone watches and judges you, and you can't breathe anymore. You believe that being better than everyone else is a heavy burden to carry because you always need to be on top, because if you fail even once, everyone will realize that you're not as amazing as you seemed, and you can no longer hide behind a mask of confidence. You feel like you're walking a tightrope between glory and defeat, and that can lead to an identity crisis and a loss of self-esteem. You start to wonder who you really are and what you're really worth. You realize that this type of compliment is a way of distorting reality because the person giving it is creating an idealized image of you and not allowing you to make mistakes or express yourself in a genuine way. You start to feel like you're living in a fantasy and can no longer connect with your reality. You feel like you're losing your identity and your voice. You start to wonder who you really are and what you are really worth. You felt that this type of compliment is a way of hiding behind an image of perfection because the person giving it is trying to escape their own insecurity and imperfection. You start to feel like you're living in a make-believe world and can no longer connect with your reality. You feel like you're losing your identity and your voice. You start to wonder who you really are and what you are really worth. 2. You are perfect. You're perfect. That's what everyone says. But is it really a compliment? Or are they just creating an impossible expectation to achieve? It's like you're put on a pedestal, and any mistake, no matter how small, is magnified and criticized. This creates terrible internal pressure because you feel like you always have to be right, and you can never fail. And the worst part is that if you start to believe this lie, you'll exhaust yourself trying to reach an impossible standard. And when you don't succeed, you'll feel like a failure. When someone tells you that you are perfect, it's like they're taking away your humanity. You are a person with mistakes, with flaws, with successes and failures. But when someone tells you that you're perfect, you feel like you can't make mistakes anymore. This is very dangerous because you'll start to hide behind a mask of perfection and you'll lose your identity. You are no longer you. You're just an image that others have created for you. And when you start to feel comfortable with this image, you'll forget that you are human. And what's worse, you'll forget that it's okay to make mistakes. When you start believing that you're perfect, you start losing your ability to learn. You don't need to improve anymore because you're already the best. And that's a big problem because life is a process of growth and learning. You'll become static and you'll forget that life is a daily challenge. You'll forget that you need to work hard to achieve your goals. And the worst part is that when you come across a mistake, you'll feel completely disoriented. When someone tells you that you're perfect, it's like they're setting a trap for you. You will feel pressure to maintain this image of perfection, and you'll exhaust yourself trying to reach an impossible standard. And when you don't, you'll feel like a failure. You'll feel like you've let everyone down. And the worst part is, you'll forget that mistakes are a natural part of life. You'll forget that mistakes are an opportunity for growth. When you are called perfect, it is like someone is locking you in a cage. You will feel trapped in an image that is not real. You will feel like you can no longer be yourself. You will forget that life is a process of discovery and learning. You will forget that mistakes are a natural part of life. And the worst part is, you will forget that you are allowed to be yourself, with all the mistakes and flaws that you have. 3. You are a genius. You have always been someone who impresses people with your intelligence and your ability to solve complex problems. People often compliment you by calling you a genius, but you need to be careful with this type of praise. First, it is important to understand that this statement may not be entirely true. After all, who defines what a genius is? Is it someone who solves a complicated math problem, or someone who creates an incredible work of art? Or is it someone who simply has good luck? You need to be suspicious of the intention behind this praise. Furthermore, this statement may be a way of controlling you, making you feel responsible for solving every problem. This can create enormous pressure and lead to paralysis. It is important to understand that you do not have to be a genius to be valuable. When someone calls you a genius, they may be trying to make you feel too proud. This can lead to a loss of focus and a feeling that you have already achieved everything you need to. However, it is important to remember that success is a journey, not a destination. You need to keep working and striving to achieve your goals. It's also important to be humble and recognize that you don't know everything. You need to always be willing to learn and improve. It's important to be wary of anyone who makes you feel like you already know everything. Another important thing is that when someone calls you a genius, they may be trying to make themselves feel better about themselves. This is very common, especially when it comes to people who are feeling insecure. They may praise you to make themselves feel better about themselves, but that doesn't mean you're actually a genius. It's important to understand the motivations behind the praise and not get carried away by it. Also, it's important to remember that true success doesn't come from praise, but from real dedication and hard work. It's important to remember that you're not defined by your skills or intelligence alone. You're a complex person with feelings, desires, and fears. You need to focus not so much on your intellect, but also on your heart and soul. Also, it's important to remember that mistakes are a natural part of growing up. You need to learn to make mistakes and get back up. It is important not to get carried away by compliments that may not be true and to focus on your own growth and development. When someone calls you a genius, they may be trying to take advantage of you. It is important to always be aware of this and not get carried away by compliments that may be unkind. You need to be careful about who you surround yourself with and who compliments you. Also, it is important to remember that success does not come from compliments, but from hard work and real dedication. You need to focus on your own growth and development and not get carried away by compliments that may not be true. For "you're the best I have ever seen." "You're the best I've ever seen" is a phrase that may sound like a compliment, but it hides a dangerous trap. After all, who is the ever seen in this equation? Is it a comparison with other people or with a preconceived expectation? When someone tells us that we are the best, we automatically compare ourselves to others, and this can lead to internal competition. What if we don't reach that best standard again? The pressure to maintain that position can be overwhelming. In addition, this statement can also be a form of manipulation, creating a sense of obligation towards the other person. We need to be careful with these words, as they can hide a much more sinister intention. This phrase can also create a false sense of security, causing us to become complacent and stop striving to improve. If we are already the best, why keep working hard? This can lead to paralysis and, ultimately, stagnation. In addition, this statement can be a way to control our actions, making us dependent on the approval of others. We are human beings, not objects of comparison. We need to learn to value ourselves based on our own achievements, not on the opinions of others. This trap is even more dangerous when it comes from people who want to influence or manipulate us. They may use this phrase to make us feel special, only to use us for their own gain. It is important to be skeptical when we hear these words and ask why they are being said. What is the reason behind this statement? Is it to praise us or to control us? We need to be honest with ourselves and recognize that we do not need the approval of others to feel valid. When someone tells us that we are the best, we must look beyond the surface and question the intentions behind it. It is important to remember that we are more than just a comparison to others. We are unique beings with our own goals and desires. We must not allow ourselves to be influenced by words that can be used to control us. We must fight to maintain our identity and not allow others to define us. So the next time someone tells us that we are the best, we must be prepared to question it. We must ask what they mean by that, and what is the reason behind this statement. We must remember that we do not need the approval of others to feel valid, and that we are more than just a comparison. 5. You never fail. When you hear these words, it's like being given a warm, comforting hug. It's like someone is telling you that you're amazing, that nothing can stop you, that you can overcome any obstacle. However, there's a trap behind this statement. It can make you complacent, making you believe that you don't need to try harder to improve. And that's when you start to fail. You start to settle instead of pushing yourself further. You start to feel safe instead of challenged. And that's when things start to fall apart. You never fail may sound like a compliment, but it's actually a curse. It robs you of the opportunity to learn from your mistakes and grow as a person. It makes you feel that all your efforts are enough, that you don't need to improve at all. And that's when you start to lose your competitive edge. You start to stagnate instead of innovate, to settle instead of excel. And that's when others start to overtake you. When you hear, "You never fail," it's like someone is taking away your motivation to improve. It's like someone is telling you that you've already achieved your best, that you don't need to try anymore. And that's when you start to settle for what you have instead of striving to achieve more. You start to feel satisfied instead of challenged. And that's when you start to stagnate. "You never fail" is a statement that can lead you to complacency. It makes you believe that you're perfect, that you don't need to improve anymore. And that's when you start to lose your competitiveness. You start to settle instead of pushing yourself further. You start to feel secure instead of challenged. And that's when things start to fall apart. When you hear, "You never fail," it's like someone is robbing you of your ability to learn and grow. It's like someone is telling you that you already know everything you need to know, that you don't need to learn anymore. And that's when you start to stagnate instead of grow. You start to settle instead of pushing yourself to go further. You start to feel satisfied instead of feeling challenged. When someone compliments us, it is natural to feel proud and grateful. However, it is important to be careful with the compliments we receive, as some may have ulterior motives. You need to learn to distinguish between a sincere compliment and a disguised curse. If you're not careful, you may get carried away by seemingly kind words and lose your way. It is essential to maintain discernment and not let yourself be influenced by other people's opinions. You need to focus on your goals and not be distracted by compliments that may not be sincere. It is important to remember that people may have hidden motives when they compliment us. You need to be humble, but also shrewd. You should not accept a compliment blindly. You need to analyze the intention behind it. If you feel secure and confident in yourself, you will be less likely to be influenced by compliments that may hide malice. Therefore, you need to be careful and not let yourself be swayed by words that may be disguised. It is time to reevaluate your relationships and find out if the compliments you receive are genuine or disguised curses. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to learn more about how to deal with these situations and how to maintain your confidence and security in the face of dubious compliments.